Have you ever noticed that the smartest person in the room is often the loneliest? Think about it. While everyone else is laughing at surface-level jokes and bonding over small talk, there's always that one person standing quietly in the corner, observing, thinking deeper thoughts that no one else seems interested in hearing. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? In a world that claims to value intelligence and critical thinking, why do the people who actually possess these qualities often find themselves pushed to the margins? Why does being intellectually curious feel like a social death sentence? The answer is more unsettling than you might think, and it reveals something profound about human nature itself. What I'm talking about isn't just social awkwardness or introversion. It's something much deeper. There's a specific kind of isolation that comes with seeing the world too clearly, with asking questions that others find uncomfortable, with refusing to accept easy answers when complex truths are staring you in the face. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer understood this better than most. He spent his life exploring why intelligence often feels more like a burden than a gift. According to Schopenhauer, there's a fundamental disconnect between those who seek truth and those who seek comfort. And unfortunately, most of society falls into that second category. But here's what makes this relevant to your life right now. We're living in an age where shallow thinking is not just tolerated, it's rewarded. Social media algorithms favor quick, emotional responses over thoughtful analysis. Our education system prizes conformity over critical thinking. Even in our personal relationships, we often choose pleasant lies over difficult conversations. If you've ever felt like you're swimming against the current, if you've ever been called too intense or overthinking, then you're experiencing something that brilliant minds have grappled with for centuries. The question isn't whether you're broken, it's whether society is equipped to handle people who think differently. Today, we're going to explore why intelligence creates loneliness, how this affects the people brave enough to think deeply, and what you can do about it if you recognize yourself in this description. The uncomfortable mirror. Let's start with something you've probably experienced firsthand. You're at a dinner party, and someone makes a statement that's clearly oversimplified or just plain wrong. Maybe they say something like, "Money doesn't buy happiness," or "Everything happens for a reason." Most people nod along, but you can't help but see the nuances, the exceptions, the deeper complexities. So you offer a different perspective. Not aggressively, not condescendingly, just thoughtfully. And suddenly, the mood shifts. People get defensive. The conversation becomes awkward. You've committed the social sin of making others feel intellectually inadequate without even trying. Schopenhauer called this phenomenon the burden of perception. When you think deeply, you inadvertently become a mirror that reflects other people's mental limitations back at them. It's not that you're trying to show off or prove you're smarter, it's that your very presence raises the intellectual bar in a way that makes others uncomfortable. Think about physical fitness for a moment. If you're out of shape and you meet someone who's incredibly fit, you might feel inspired or motivated. But intellectual fitness works differently. When someone displays mental agility or depth of thought, it doesn't inspire most people, it threatens them. Because unlike physical strength, intelligence touches something much more personal, our sense of identity and self-worth. This is why throughout history, societies have had a complicated relationship with their brightest minds. We celebrate them after they're safely dead, but while they're alive? That's a different story entirely. The psychology of intellectual rejection. Here's where things get really interesting from a psychological standpoint. When most people encounter ideas that challenge their worldview, their brain doesn't respond with curiosity, it responds with fear. Literally. Modern neuroscience shows us that when we feel intellectually outmatched, the same parts of our brain that activate during physical threats start firing. It's as if our mind perceives a deep thinker as an actual predator. This isn't a conscious decision, it's hardwired into our survival mechanisms. Why would evolution wire us this way? Because for most of human history, being accepted by the group meant survival. Our ancestors didn't need to be the smartest person in the tribe, they needed to fit in with the tribe. Those who stood out too much, even intellectually, risked being ostracized, which in ancient times was essentially a death sentence. So when you walk into a room and start discussing philosophy, or questioning widely accepted beliefs, or pointing out logical inconsistencies in popular ideas, you're not just sharing thoughts, you're triggering ancient alarm bells in other people's minds. This explains why confidence often wins over competence in social situations. People are drawn to those who speak with certainty, even if they're wrong, rather than those who speak with nuance and acknowledge complexity. Certainty feels safe. Complexity feels threatening. The curse of seeing too clearly. Schopenhauer believed that intelligence was fundamentally a curse disguised as a gift. The more clearly you see the world, he argued, the harder it becomes to find happiness in it. This isn't pessimism, it's recognition of a genuine psychological trade-off. Think about ignorance for a moment. There's a reason we have the phrase, ignorance is bliss. When you don't think too deeply about the injustices in the world, the meaningless suffering, the ways people deceive themselves and others, life feels lighter. You can enjoy simple pleasures without the weight of existential questions crushing down on you. But when you're wired to think deeply, you can't just turn that off. You see the manipulation in advertising. You notice the logical fallacies in political speeches. You recognize the social games people play, even when they're unaware they're playing them. You understand that most of what people worry about is ultimately insignificant. But you also struggle to find meaning in the things that bring others joy. This is why many brilliant minds throughout history have struggled with depression and feelings of alienation. It's not that they were mentally ill, it's that they were mentally aware. They saw reality without the comfortable illusions that make life bearable for most people. Consider someone like Vincent van Gogh. His paintings show us a world of extraordinary beauty and emotional depth. But this same sensitivity that created masterpieces also made it impossible for him to function normally in society. He saw too much, felt too deeply, understood too clearly, and the world wasn't ready for that level of intensity. The modern amplification. If being an intellectual was challenging in Schopenhauer's time, it's even more difficult today. We live in an age of information overload, where deep thinking is actively discouraged by the very platforms we use to communicate. Social media rewards quick reactions over thoughtful responses. The algorithm doesn't care if your comment is wise or nuanced, it cares if it gets engagement. Outrage performs better than insight. Simplification beats sophistication every time. This creates a feedback loop where shallow thinking is not just tolerated, but actively promoted. People who try to add depth to online discussions often find themselves ignored, or worse, attacked by people who interpret nuance as pretentiousness. Even in professional settings, there's pressure to dumb down complex ideas. Presentations need to be engaging rather than accurate. Meetings favor those who can provide simple solutions to complex problems, even when those solutions are inadequate. The result? People who think deeply often feel like they're speaking a different language from everyone around them. They watch as misinformation spreads because it's easier to understand than the truth. They see important decisions being made based on emotional reactions rather than careful analysis. The price of intellectual honesty. Perhaps the most isolating aspect of being a deep thinker is the commitment to intellectual honesty that comes with it. When you've trained yourself to examine ideas carefully, to question assumptions, to seek truth rather than comfort, you can't easily participate in the social rituals that bond most people together. Small talk feels meaningless when you're aware of the enormous problems facing humanity. Office politics seem trivial when you understand the larger systems at work. Even entertainment becomes difficult when you can see the manipulation techniques being used to capture your attention. This doesn't make deep thinkers superior to others. It just makes them different in ways that create natural barriers to connection. It's like being a vegetarian at a barbecue or a teetotaler at a wine tasting. You're not judging others, but you also can't fully participate in what brings them together. Schopenhauer's solution to this dilemma was both elegant and heartbreaking. Embrace the solitude. He argued that deep thinkers should stop trying to force connections with people who operate on different intellectual wavelengths. Instead, they should find meaning in solitary pursuits, reading, writing, creating, thinking. but this creates its own problems. Humans are social creatures, and complete isolation isn't psychologically healthy for anyone. The challenge becomes finding ways to connect authentically without compromising your intellectual integrity. So, where does this leave us? If you're someone who thinks deeply, are you doomed to a life of intellectual loneliness? Not necessarily. The key insight from Schopenhauer isn't that deep thinkers should give up on connection, it's that they need to be more strategic about where and how they seek it. You don't need everyone to understand you, you just need the right people to understand you. This means being selective about your intellectual energy. Save your deepest thoughts for those who can appreciate them. Learn to recognize when someone is genuinely curious versus when they're just being polite. Develop the wisdom to know when to engage and when to simply observe. Remember, the loneliness you feel isn't a character flaw, it's the natural consequence of seeing the world more clearly than most. Every great thinker throughout history has walked this path. You're not broken, you're awake in a world that's often content to sleepwalk. The question isn't how to stop thinking deeply, it's how to think deeply while still finding your place in the world. And that starts with accepting that your intellectual gifts come with a price, but also with recognizing that this price is worth paying for the clarity, authenticity, and deeper understanding you gain in return. Your thoughts matter, even when others can't see their value yet. I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt intellectually isolated? Have you experienced that awkward silence when you've tried to introduce a complex idea into casual conversation? Drop a comment below and share your story. I read every single one, and your experiences help create a community for people who think differently. If this resonated with you, there's a good chance you'll appreciate the other deep dives we do into philosophy and psychology. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss future videos where we explore the ideas that most people are afraid to discuss. And here's a challenge for you. This week, try to have one genuinely deep conversation with someone. It might be uncomfortable, it might not go perfectly, but you might also discover that there are more people out there hungry for meaningful dialogue than you think. Until next time, keep thinking deeply. The world needs minds like yours, even when it doesn't always know how to appreciate them.